Welcome to the channel, everyone. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do so now. In today's video, we are going to be looking at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So for those of you that don't know what the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is, it is the company and it's the bourse that allows us to buy and sell shares. So like MTN, Vodacom, all our favorite shares, the JSE facilitates those transactions for us. Now, just like any other company on the JSE themselves are also listed on the stock exchange and you can buy their shares. So this is what I want to talk about today, and I want to explain to you why I'm going to go long on JSE as a swing trade strictly over the next month and a half. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think there should be a bounce in the price, but that obviously is not guaranteed. So please don't misconstrue this as investment advice. Just use it as educational, for an educational purpose, and look at how the trade goes. I'm definitely not saying go and take your life savings and buy into this, because what I'm doing is I'm taking the profits from my previous trades and I'm throwing it in here as a way to test my thesis. So before I show you why I'm doing what I'm doing, I want to go back to about January 2015. So we're going back 5-6 years ago from now, and you'll see that on the 5th of January, 6th of January 2015, the share price was at about 116 Rand. If you look on the far right corner, you'll see 11608. So in 6 years, the JSE has actually lost money. In fact, if we go by its current price of, let's just round it down and say 104, and we'll use 1116, we actually know that the JSE lost 10% in the last 6 years. Now that could be for many reasons, but I'm assuming that appetite for JSE stocks has been tainted. That means not many people are wanting the JSE shares, and that's actually led to a lot of delistings. So if you actually go and do your homework and your research, you'll see that dozens of companies, possibly even hundreds of companies, have delisted over the last 5-10 years. So that's just less revenue for JSE, and that just means less income over time. And it's actually a market that's only 1% of the global market. So to remain competitive and attractive, the JSE is going to have to offer something going forward. Otherwise, their share price is probably going to tank even further. So if we go by January 15th and we use this baseline of between 116 and 120, I think 120 is more applicable in this case. If you see on the right hand side, it goes 119, which is 120 Rand. And every time that the JSE rallies, it pulls back down to this major support line. So that means it tells you there's strong people that are actually holding the stock there. When it gets to that level, there aren't a lot of sellers. There's actually more buyers that come in, or people just holding the stock. So from that time, it's actually been probably great to trade this specific stock, because you know that every time it comes down to 120, it's time to buy, and it shoots up. You sell it, you buy it, you sell it, you buy it. And then we had the pandemic in August 2019. It hit 120 again on that strong support line, rallied up and got sold off hard. And then we went into 2020 when the pandemic hit, and the stock tanked. So those buyers or those holders at 120, they couldn't hold that line anymore, and the stock plummeted. Just like most stocks around the globe, JSE wasn't immune, and they dropped to about 85 Rand. So I'm using that as my very last support line and as the base of my exit. So what I mean by that is because that is the price it fell to, and that's the price that held. So a lot of people stepped in at that price. Maybe they saw value, maybe they wanted to trade it, and there were more buyers than sellers at that specific point, and the price started to climb up again. with pullbacks along the way, of course, but ultimately it climbed back above to that 120, and then it sold off, went up, sold off, went up, and it just repeated that process. But what's important to point out is that the 120 baseline, that previous support, is now a very strong resistance. And for any significant momentum for the JSE to even think about making returns for shareholders again, that 120 will have to break through and actually be cleared for long-term for momentum upwards. So if you'll see between these these green lines, sorry, that this became the new trading range for JSE. Prior to that, the trading range was 120 to about 200. Went up and down, up and down, up and down. And then it fell lower into a new trading range. So as a trader, you can identify that trading range and actually buy the dips, sell the rallies. So you'll see in between that green line, 110 was a very strong support line. So 120 was the support, which became resistance, and a new support line was made, which was 110. JSE traded in between that range since May last year, 2020. So every time it hit 110, buyers stepped in, sent the share price up. It broke 120. People that entered here might have made a big mistake because there was no confirmation, and it sold off hard back down to 110. Same thing happened. 110 happened. Buyers stepped in. Strong rally again, tried to test at 130, broke through the previous support, didn't hold, and tanked to about 107 Rand. So that 110 mark was the area of buying. So as a trader, myself, I was buying every time JSE got to 110, I was buying it. I bought it, sold it at about 120, 122. I don't try and push the upper limits. I sell out at 120 before other profit traders take their profits. I don't need to squeeze that extra 5%. And it sold off. And in that time, I was lucky enough to get paid dividends too by the JSE, which is kind of ironic because the more people that decide to leave the JSE and sell their shares completely, in the short term, that boosts revenue up for JSE because there's more transactions. So that will be a very clear signal as the JSE's revenue will go up before it crumbles. Because as more people exit, this will boost its revenue, which makes it perfect for these traders or these price fluctuations, and that's why it trades in this range. And most likely next year, January, February, if the JSE decide to pay dividends again, it will pay from its profits and they will pay dividends out again. They paid R7.25 a share. And when I was trading the stock, I held it come dividend and sold it ex-dividend, and I cashed in some dividends plus some capital appreciation. So that's just the backdrop of JSE. And companies are delisting on the JSE, and investors are leaving the stock market. So they are finding more attractive stocks on other bourses across the globe. Now, this brings me to my swing trade that I'm planning to do now, which is very risky. And I also just want to point out that this is not financial advice. And please don't misconstrue it as financial advice. This should only be used as for educational purposes. And I want you to see how my trade plays out. This isn't a guaranteed win because it is quite risky. You'll see that JSE traded in this range of this green range. I could lift the green up a little bit higher to about 130. I would say between 130 and 110 was this trading range. But I'm using 120 as a strong resistance to break now going forward because that was a previous support line. So you'll see that it's broken out of this green range and it could definitely test 98 Rand again. So buying now could possibly be a mistake, which I haven't bought yet. I want to buy, but I'm waiting for the JSE to test 100 Rand, that would probably be a very good entry point at 100. I think at 100, buyers will step in and send the price up. Now, JSE will consolidate and form a new range. Now, depending where that new range is, it could be between, let's say, the previous support of 93 to 110. So if the new range is between 93 Rand and 110, we are on that upper level of that new range. So in the next pullback, ideally 100 or lower is when I would like to enter. And this is why I'm going to watch this share very closely over the coming days and weeks and see how this plays out. Now, buyers could step in right now and send this share price straight up into the new range, into the old existing range of between 110. So 110 is an important level to watch. If the JSE can break 110 and stay above 110, then it's back in this green range of between 110 and 130. So there's a few options to do here if you want to trade. Now you can wait for confirmation of it closing above 110 and making your first trade, expecting it to go to 120, that first resistance line, and possibly if it breaks 120, test 130 before a significant pullback. So you can watch that range. But I'm under the assumption that it's going to trade lower in a new range because of social unrest, the South African economy, delistings, and just general appetite, lack of appetite. So like I mentioned, I believe the new range will probably be this support line here, which is 93. I've got my line at 95 because if I enter now, that would be my stop loss. But I don't plan to enter just yet. I am contemplating it, but I want to see where it goes first. So let's assume 93 is the bottom of this range, which is the 2020 crash. Okay, I'm not going 85 because I think that was oversold. So I'm going to go previous support just above that 95, but it could break down to 85 quite easily. So that's something to watch. But I think the new range will be between 93 and 110. So I'm going to watch the price. You can see the price has dropped from 104 and it's entered into 103 now. 103 Rand 96. I will take my first position in the stock at about 100 Rand. So I could take money now and put it in at this rate, at this level, at 104 Rand, let's say, but I wouldn't put all my capital. I would put half my capital in so that if it does break up into the existing range, then I'm good. I'm making some small pocket change. But if it breaks down lower, then I've only risked half of my capital and I've still got money to throw in to bring down my average purchase price. But I'm going to watch it for a while because ideally I want to enter at 100 Rand or 98 Rand and then ride it up to that first resistance level at about 110. So that's what I wanted to share with you, just the ranges of the JSE. And long term, it doesn't look good for the JSE because last 6 years, they've lost 10%. And we're also in this downwards channel right here. There's no new higher highs. There's lower lows potentially if it breaks 85. So we had this small from 85, we had a new higher high here, and then it broke down here. It went back lower, and then it stayed in that range, and now it's broken lower again. So we can watch these ranges, see how it plays out, and there could be some money to be made, but it is very high. It's a high risk. You can see that I've plotted some percentage losses and some percentage gains. So if it decides to go at the level it is now, 104 Rand, and it breaks 110 and goes back into this trading range and makes its way to 120, there's a nice 15% gain. So if you put 10,000 Rand, you're making yourself 1,500 Rand. Now, ideally, I don't think that's going to happen just yet. If you decide to enter now at 104 or 103.91 now, then you're risking 9% of your capital if it drops down to about 95, 94 Rand. So if you put in 10,000, you must be willing to lose 900 or 1,000 Rand, between 9 and 10%. That's to the first support. And if that doesn't hold, then it will test 85. And that is about an 18% drop from current levels. So if you put down 10,000 Rand, you're going to lose 1,800 Rand if you sell it. Now we know the long trend is down. All right, you can see there's just lower lows each time. Lower new highs, lower highs each time. So you'll see here's a high, a lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. That's not up. That's not an uptrend. That's a downtrend. So it will fight to stay in these ranges. So as a trader, you can take advantage of that. So remember that this is very risky, this trade, and put it on your watch list. Don't just jump in right now because there's going to be plenty of opportunity in this stock. All you have to do is map out if you go and do it yourself, or you can come to this video and keep track of it. I would say 110 is the first support line that it needs to break. So that's the upper trend. That's going to be very strong resistance at the moment. And the lower side will probably be between 93 and 110. So I believe that's the new trading range. If it breaks 110, then it's in its old existing trading range. If it breaks lower than 93, then it could get uglier and it could form a new trading range between 93 and 85. So again, I just want to remind you that this is not financial advice. This is just for educational purposes. And feel free to comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. If you have any other stocks that you are interested in, I would love to check it out, research it, check the technical analysis out. Please reach out to me and let me know. And if you found that this video gave you value, or if you think that it has helped you in some way, please hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends. And then I'm going to end the video now. I will do a follow video up on this to see how it's played out, which I'm quite interested in. And that will conclude today's video. So from me, I just want to thank you for taking the time watching the video, and I will see you next week. So from me, bye for now.